Hi, I'm Rebecca Ye, your Miss Northwest 2012. Inspired by my brother Phil, my personal platform, A Voice for Autism, has developed into a journey in which I wish to communicate the importance of early diagnosis and intervention. Finally, I will share with you why federal autism research and education is underfunded and what you can do. You have probably heard of autism, but you may not understand what it really is, what causes it, and what you can do. Autism is a neurologic disorder characterized by impaired communication, abnormal social interaction, and restricted or repetitive behaviors. It is found in different variations, making it a spectrum disorder in which each individual may fall into a different level of severity. Autism's negative impacts can be debilitating due to the severity of the disorder, the time of diagnosis, and most importantly, whether early intervention is implemented. In addition, effective therapies can be expensive, family stress can be overwhelming, and the opportunity for that autistic individual to be independent and self-sufficient is daunting. This brings me to my own brother Phil. At the age of 4, he was diagnosed with a moderately severe form of autism called pervasive developmental disorder. Phil has an IQ of 76, lacks some social skills that most people his age would have, and would act differently in some ways than your typical 21-year-old. However, he is currently working at Menards, has his driver's license, and 2 years worth of college courses under his belt. In his free time, he loves to hunt and fish, hang out with his peers, and some older adult friends. Although Phil struggles to understand social interactions and communicate his own thoughts to others, he has made huge strides due to the help of our family and his support system.
I am Kim Machenbacher. I'm a speech-language pathologist who worked with Philip as a preschooler all the way through 5th grade. Autism is a neurological disorder. It affects all areas of development differently in every child, but it can impact motor skills, cognitive thinking skills, speech and language skills, social communication skills. So really we look at the developmental milestones. We most profoundly see differences in these children by the age of between 2 and 3. These things show up. So we look for them not to be reaching those developmental milestones in those different areas of cognition, physical, motor, and communication skills, as well as social and play skills. Even before the age of 2, there are some signs, and those signs would be not showing any joy or facial expressions of joy by the age of 6 months. And by 9 months, we like them to be able to imitate our facial expressions, smile back at us, maybe imitate some sounds. And by 12 months, we would like them to be pointing, showing us things, waving at that point, and babbling also. By 16 months, we would like them to have their first words, and by the age of 24 months, starting to put 2 words together that are not in imitation of someone else, but them being able to put 2 words together in a novel way. And so if children are not doing those things at those times, those are red flags that we would certainly want to then monitor those skills to see how they progress. The biggest red flag to me would be if children were able to do those things, were able to put words together and communicate and gesture and point, and then lost their ability to do so.
I'm an EA, an educational assistant, so I traveled through school with him. I started with him in 1st grade and traveled through 12th, which is very unusual. Phil's speech was rather disordered.
The ball just went deeply down.
And then what did you do?
I just set the hook and I know this guy just came in.
Okay.
So things would come out in ways that you had to kind of figure out what he was trying to say. And so communicating with teachers, with friends, with peers, and then with sensory issues that our guys on the spectrum struggled so much with. You know, when he was younger, in 1st grade, I think my first job to me was to gain his trust. And so he's a kid that always needed to touch, you know, and needed that sensory input physically. So I'd let him sit in my lap and twirl my hair, and was, I think that's probably one of the ways we connected. Grade school, when he would get really stressed, we'd have 2 bean bags, and we'd just turn him into a hot dog. one beanbag under, he'd lay down on the beanbag, other beanbag on top, and then I would lay on top of that and squish him. And we'd talk about it, and you know, it helped.
Phil was verbal, which we had at least words to work with, which made my life easier. His words were disordered and were not always in the correct order. He was missing some grammatical structures.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Philip, and I'm going to have you, I want to watch me how to golf. If I golf to this end and if the ball flies, you better show the camera where it's going. Alright, here we go.
And so we cleaned those up. So a little bit of our therapy focused on that, but we also focused mostly on social communication skills, such as initiating topics, being able to talk about many different topics, being able to maintain a conversation with his peers, being able to read body language of other people. And oftentimes children with autism have difficulty with figurative language, so we worked on metaphors and idioms and jokes, those kinds of things. We really tried to work on reciprocal social interaction, give and take interactions with his peers.
There were definite grades where things got tougher. You know, 3rd grade academics got tougher, so he couldn't be in the classrooms for so much of that, so I would pick up that piece sometimes. When we hit middle school, then the social piece really accelerates.
Since autism is a developmental disability and social communication is an area seriously lacking in development, so many of the students come into the high school, which is such a social atmosphere. And for the students that are on the spectrum that are operating a good 5 years, 6 years behind their same age peers, it makes social interaction very difficult. And so for those students that are on the spectrum, they recognize something is drastically different from them and they so want to participate in the social atmosphere of the middle school and the high school, but not having those skills is a very big barrier for them. And the social skills program then tries to bring down those barriers in a variety of ways.
If we can do more with partnering up our ASD students with regular education or age-typical peer mentors, that would make a huge difference for them.
A typical day was coming in, kind of acclimating ourselves to being in the room, being willing to take risks with each other. A lot of times it started with humor and jokes, all sorts of different ways. And then there was the lesson, maybe it was a particular skill that had been identified that we wanted to teach on. A skill that I thought would take us maybe 45 minutes to work on and then move on to, we ended up stretching out to like a week or more. And the fun thing too with the mentors was I wasn't teaching social skills only to those students on the spectrum. The mentors numerous times said, you should make everybody take this class. And they were the ones raising their hands and saying, well, wait a minute, what about this situation?
When it was time for Christmas ball, this was Haley again.
Yeah.
She's an important person in Phil's life. He was trying to figure out what's going to happen at Christmas ball and all this stuff. But he couldn't understand, you know, why Haley wouldn't take time to talk with him about his concerns. So I drew these pictures and I says, okay, Phil, what are your biggest concerns? And so we put those in big bubbles and his little concerns in little bubbles. And I says, okay, Haley's a girl, Phil. These are her big concerns. Showing him that they were totally opposite.
What's missing in a lot of school systems is that we need to develop those social skills from the very beginning. And we need to have that available, you know, from the early childhood level all the way through. That would be the most important thing to me in an autistic child's life is having those social skills available to them from the very beginning.
Phil is near and dear to my heart and has a very special place because he had so much trust in me. He liked to call me Mary Poppins, practically perfect in every way, which, you know, when he would get in his moments of constantly calling me Mary Poppins, that's a lot of pressure. I realized that what he was giving to me was just such a gift. And he gave that to everybody in the classroom. He was so always himself. I can't describe him. apart from sounding too religious, I've said many times that getting to work with Phil and getting to work with students on the spectrum is probably the closest I've ever felt to God, just because they are such a gift and trust.
Quite a number of them can be very successful. You know, when you're talking about the people at the very high end with high functioning autism and Asperger's, there are doctors, you know, Asperger's doctors, lawyers, scientists, you know, they're making fabulous discoveries. We'd be nowhere without our people on the spectrum, and they just bring joy to our lives.
Those strengths that ASD students have are, you know, something that, another thing in our society that we need to take more advantage of because of their tools that they have that, you know, sometimes they may be seen as something that something they perseverate on as they're going through school because it's something that they have a deep interest in. But if we can channel that student into what that deep interest is in and focus their education on that, that would make them a, you know, wonderful asset to our society.
Well, the latest statistics I just read were that 1 in 54 boys and 1 in 252 girls are diagnosed with autism. So it is a relatively high incidence, and the unique way that these people think about the world and their gifts in the visual skills, math, music, and art can really greatly contribute to society. So we as a society need to learn how to make the work environment more autism friendly, so that we certainly would not want to miss out on what they can contribute, because the social skills may hinder their ability to be employed or stay in employment.
If we see students who are struggling because maybe they haven't been diagnosed, you know, ask questions and make sure that they're getting all the services that there are available to them. Each community in the state of Minnesota is developing lots and lots of resources, which are wonderful, that weren't there 10 years ago.
I guarantee you have sat in classrooms and will sit in classrooms and work with people in your future who are somewhere on the spectrum, and just recognizing that we don't all come into this world equipped with the same social competencies, and we don't all have the same parents to teach us other social competencies that are not just, you know, taken for granted, that we need to be tender-hearted and open relationships with those people. So often we are dismissive of people that just don't walk the right social walk or talk the right social talk, and I just think that's so sad for us as a society, that we're just not more open to it, but incredibly so isolating for that individual.
If we don't help them and don't give them the services that they need young, when they're young, catch them young, that creates a burden financially to society, because it can be anywhere from $3 to $5 million in a lifetime to take care of those that we haven't helped. The suicide rate for our guys on the spectrum is much higher. I don't have the number, but it's higher than the national average. So without our supports, we see a lot of our guys end their own lives.
I think it's certainly always maybe easiest to go through your family physician and talk to them about your concerns, or your pediatrician. But the public health system in all communities are usually also very good at screening children for those developmental milestones. And every school district in every community has a special education cooperative where the families can contact the school district to see how they would get a hold of an intervention team to do a screening at first, and then possibly some future testing. For me, the most profound impact about early intervention is how much it helps the families. It sets them up with the resources in the communities that they may not have known existed. And when the families start learning some skills to cope with things such as my child cannot speak or communicate, and they may be having behavior problems or dietary issues or sleep issues, hooking them up with resources that can help them cope and manage those things, to me, is the most important impact. But certainly it can also impact that beautifully developing brain in those little early ages of birth through 3, where we know that the children can learn so much at that time, and to be able to get in there and help facilitate that is very impactful.
Hi, I'm Philip.mpg. I'm 21 years old and I live in Nisswa, Minnesota. Well, I learned that I had autism when I was in 8th grade back in middle school. And I thought I was just a regular kid, but really I'm a lot different than anybody else. Well, autism for me, I have a hard time of understanding inside jokes, eye contact, understanding body language, and facial expression. Well, you just got to get to know them more, give it time, and accept them who they are, and just treat them like a friend, like they treat their other friends. Well, I have really good eyesight. I can drive a car, boat, mow the lawn with a lawn tractor, use a leaf blower, ice auger, and even finally I have a job at Menards that I work part-time from 5 in the morning until 9 in the morning, which is an early morning shift of the stocking program of stocking items on the shelf so your customers can buy them. I'm kind, honest, and trustworthy, and I try to make sure everything is good and nothing's wrong. I like to hunt and fish a lot and hang out with friends and socialize and have fun.
1 in 88 children has autism, making it more common than juvenile diabetes, childhood cancer, and pediatric AIDS combined. Nearly 1.5 million Americans have some form of autism, with 4 out of 5 of them being male. Currently, there's no known cause of autism. However, there are probably complex genetic factors, in addition to unknown environmental factors at work. Autism's annual U.S. economic impact is $35 billion, matching the economic impact of AIDS. Understanding autism is a first step to making a difference in the lives of those impacted by it. But what else can you do? As I mentioned earlier, federal autism research and education is underfunded. Our federal government reserves less than 1% of its national research budget for autism. On the other hand, nearly 10% of the federal research budget goes to AIDS research. Our elected legislators are responsible for representing the needs of their constituents. As responsible citizens, we need to inform our elected officials of the lack of funding for autism research and education. The Caucus for Autism Research and Education is a national bipartisan caucus that supports legislation regarding autism. Our federal representatives need to be convinced to join this important caucus. Please check my website, RebeccaYeh.com, for specific information on how to easily contact and advocate to your congressmen and legislators.
We did